H. Maria Thompson's footsteps echoed through the empty hallways of Giggled Corporation's towering headquarters every night at 11 p.m. For 15 years, she had been part of the invisible workforce that kept the gleaming office building spotless. At age 45, she wasn't just any cleaning lady. She was the most thorough and observant member of the nighttime maintenance staff. Her routine never changed. She would punch in her time card, tie her graying hair back with a worn elastic band, and pull on her blue uniform that had Giggled Maintenance embroidered on the pocket. The other cleaning staff would wave to her as they dispersed to their assigned floors, but Maria's territory was special. She handled the executive floor, where the company's top brass worked during daylight hours. During the day, these halls buzzed with expensive suits, clicking heels, and important phone calls. But at night, it was Maria's domain. She knew every desk, every paper clip, and every coffee stain. What the executives didn't know was that while Maria cleaned their offices, she absorbed everything around her like a sponge. 3 years ago, Maria had made a life-changing decision. After saving carefully from her modest salary and living frugally in her small apartment, she had enrolled in night classes at the local community college. During her lunch break at 3 a.m., while others dozed in the break room, Maria would sit in a corner, eating her homemade sandwich while studying business textbooks. Her teenage daughter, Sophia, would often ask, "Mama, why do you work so hard? Why not find an easier job?" Maria would smile and respond, "Because sometimes, my hija, the best opportunities come from unexpected places." She never told anyone, but she had a dream bigger than the cleaning cart she pushed around every night. The executive floor held secrets that none of the daytime workers realized Maria could understand. As she emptied wastebaskets and wiped down desks, her eyes would catch glimpses of financial reports, business strategies, and corporate memos. Thanks to her business classes, these documents were no longer just paper with meaningless numbers. They were pieces of a puzzle she was slowly learning to solve. Marcus Sterling, the CEO, was particularly messy. His office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive artwork, required extra attention every night. He would leave coffee cups everywhere, drop papers carelessly, and never push his chair in. Maria noticed how he looked through her when they occasionally crossed paths during his late nights at the office. To him, she was as invisible as the dust she cleaned away. One night, as Maria was organizing his scattered papers, she overheard him in the hallway talking to the CFO. "The board won't notice if we adjust the numbers slightly," he had said, laughing. "Who's going to check? The cleaning lady?" That comment stung, but Maria kept quiet and continued her work. Little did Sterling know that the cleaning lady had just finished her advanced accounting class within a grade, and those numbers he talked about weren't just random figures to her anymore. Life wasn't easy for Maria. She would finish her shift at 7 a.m., attend morning classes until 10 a.m., sleep for a few hours, help Sophia with homework, cook dinner, and then head back to work. The cycle was exhausting, but Maria had a fire in her belly that kept her going. Her coworkers often gathered in the break room, complaining about their jobs and the executives who barely acknowledged their existence. But Maria would just listen, mop in hand, knowing that education was her secret weapon. She was building something bigger than anyone could see. That night, as she cleaned Sterling's office for the 1000th time, something caught her eye. A spreadsheet left open on his desk showed numbers that didn't add up. At least not in any legal way she had learned about in her classes. For the first time in 15 years, Maria's hands trembled as she dusted his desk. She knew what she was looking at, and it wasn't good. Years of being invisible had made her the perfect witness to things that were never meant to be seen. As she finished her shift that morning, Maria realized that her years of hard work, study, and silent observation were about to collide with the biggest challenge of her life. The cleaning lady who everyone overlooked was about to shake Giggled Corporation to its core. But first, she needed proof, and she knew exactly where to find it. For the next few nights, Maria approached her work differently. Her cleaning cart became the perfect cover as she spent extra time in Sterling's office, carefully documenting everything she found. Her business education had taught her exactly what to look for, and the CEO's carelessness made her job easier. One particularly quiet night, while everyone else was busy on the lower floors, Maria noticed a red folder marked Project Phoenix, carelessly left on Sterling's desk. As she wiped down his desk with her cleaning cloth, her eyes caught sight of something alarming: numbers that had been deliberately altered. with the original figures still visible under hasty correction fluid. Maria's heart raced. In her advanced corporate finance class, they had just covered financial fraud detection. The pattern she saw matched exactly what her professor had warned about: systematic embezzlement disguised as business expenses. Sterling wasn't just fudging a few numbers, he was stealing millions from the company. Using her phone, she discreetly photographed the documents. Years of cleaning had taught her how to return everything to its exact position, making it impossible for anyone to know she had seen them. Her hands shook slightly as she tucked her phone back into her uniform pocket. The next morning, instead of going straight home after her shift, Maria sat in her old Toyota in the parking lot, reviewing the photos. She pulled out her worn notebook from her night classes and began making calculations. The fraud was even bigger than she initially thought. "Oh my God," she whispered to herself, realizing the scope of what she had uncovered. According to her calculations, Sterling had diverted nearly $50 million of company money into fake accounts over the past 3 years. That evening, before her shift, Maria visited her favorite professor, Dr. Williams, at the community college. Without revealing specifics, she asked hypothetical questions about corporate fraud. Dr. Williams raised his eyebrows at her detailed queries, but provided valuable insights that confirmed her suspicions. Back at work, Maria began noticing other things too. The CFO, James Morton, would often come in early, around 5 a.m., when he thought no one was watching. She observed him shredding documents and having hushed phone conversations. Being invisible had its advantages. People never bothered to check if the cleaning lady could understand their conversations about offshore accounts and shell companies. One morning, as Maria was emptying Morton's trash, she found torn pieces of a document. After her shift, sitting in her car, she carefully pieced them together like a puzzle. It was a memo discussing alternative revenue channels, a fancy term for money laundering, as she had learned in her classes. The stress of carrying this knowledge started to show. Her daughter Sophia noticed her mother's distraction during dinner one evening. "Mom, you seem worried. Is everything okay at work?" Sophia asked, concerned. Maria managed to smile. "Everything's fine, my amor. Just tired from studying." She hated lying to her daughter, but she needed to be careful. What she had discovered could put her job, and possibly more, at risk. During her breaks, Maria began organizing her evidence. She created a detailed spreadsheet tracking the fraudulent transactions, just as she had learned in her accounting classes. Her small locker in the maintenance room became a hidden filing cabinet, storing copies of important documents she had found. The turning point came when she overheard a late-night conversation between Sterling and Morton in the conference room. She was mopping the hallway when Sterling's voice carried through the door. "The pension fund is perfect for covering our tracks. Who's going to miss a few million from there?" Maria froze. The pension fund was where her coworkers' retirement savings were kept. The same people who had worked alongside her for years, cleaning floors and emptying trash cans, dreaming of a decent retirement. That night, as she drove home in the early morning light, Maria made a decision. She couldn't stay silent anymore. But going against the CEO of a major corporation wasn't something to do without a plan. She needed more evidence, and she needed to be smart about how she used it. Opening her laptop at home, Maria began typing. Her business writing class was finally going to pay off. She had a letter to write to the board of directors. But first, she needed to make her case airtight. The cleaning lady was about to become a whistleblower, and TechGlow Corporation had no idea what was coming. The weight of Maria's discovery pressed heavily on her shoulders over the next few weeks. During her nightly cleaning rounds, she noticed how her coworkers chatted about their retirement plans, completely unaware that their pension fund was being drained by the very people they trusted to protect it. Rosa, her closest friend on the cleaning staff, noticed the change in Maria's behavior during their 3 a.m. break in the basement break room. "Maria, you look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders," Rosa said, stirring her coffee. "You barely touch your sandwich anymore." Maria stared into her own coffee cup, debating whether to confide in her friend. After 15 years of working together, she trusted Rosa, but sharing her discovery could put her friend at risk too. "Rosa," Maria finally spoke, choosing her words carefully, "what would you do if you saw someone stealing from everyone here, but speaking up might cost you your job?" Rosa's eyes widened. "Hey, Maria, don't get involved in things above our pay grade." Remember Carmen from the day shift? She reported sexual harassment last year and suddenly found herself without a job. They said it was budget cuts. We all knew the truth. Maria's stomach tightened. Carmen's story was well known among the cleaning staff, a cautionary tale of what happened to those who spoke up against management. But this was different. This wasn't just about her, it was about everyone's future. That night, as Maria cleaned the executive floor, she found more evidence. A memo had slipped behind Sterling's desk, revealing plans to transfer another $10 million from the company's pension fund to a series of offshore accounts. Her hands trembled as she made a copy using her phone. During her business ethics class the next morning, Maria could barely focus. Her professor was discussing corporate responsibility and the importance of ethical leadership, and every word felt like it was directed at her situation. After class, she approached her professor. "Dr. Martinez, what protection does a whistleblower have if they report corporate fraud?" The professor adjusted his glasses. "There are laws protecting whistleblowers, but the reality can be messy. Companies have powerful lawyers and deep pockets. Why do you ask?" Maria shook her head. "Just curious about what we learned in class today." That evening, before her shift, Maria sat in her car in the Techglow parking lot, making a list of pros and cons. The cons were scary: possible job loss, legal battles, being blacklisted from other jobs. The pros were simple but powerful: doing the right thing, protecting people's retirement savings, stopping criminals. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sophia. "Mom, my college acceptance letter came today. I got in." Maria's eyes welled up with tears. Her daughter's future was also at stake here. The same pension fund being stolen from could have helped pay for Sophia's college expenses. The decision suddenly became clearer. During her shift, Maria overheard two executives talking about layoffs in the maintenance department to cut costs. She recognized the cruel irony. They were firing hard-working people to cover up their theft. In the break room, her coworkers discussed their fears about the rumored layoffs. Many had families, mortgages, and children in school. They were worried about their futures, not knowing that their retirement savings were already being stolen. Maria spent her lunch break in her usual corner, but instead of studying her textbooks, she began writing a detailed letter. Her business communication class had taught her how to write professionally, and she put those skills to use. She documented everything: dates, amounts, account numbers, conversations she had overheard. She included references to specific documents and their locations. Her years of education were finally merging with her years of invisible observation. As her shift ended and dawn broke over the city, Maria made copies of all her evidence and stored them in 3 different locations. She knew that once she made her move, there would be no turning back. Walking to her car, Maria saw Sterling's expensive sports car already in his parking spot. He was starting another day of stealing from hard-working people, probably never imagining that the cleaning lady had gathered enough evidence to bring his whole scheme crashing down. Maria took a deep breath. Tomorrow, she would begin the process of exposing everything. But first, she needed to prepare for the storm that was about to come. Maria spent the next week meticulously preparing her case. Each night, between her cleaning duties, she gathered more evidence, building what she hoped would be an undeniable proof of Sterling's crimes. Her small apartment's kitchen table had become a makeshift investigation center, covered with copies of documents and detailed notes. One night, while cleaning the conference room after a late board meeting, Maria found a crucial piece of evidence. A financial report had slipped under the heavy wooden cabinet, a document showing the real numbers before Sterling's team had altered them. With trembling hands, she photographed it and added it to her growing collection. "Miss Thompson?" A voice startled her. It was Janet, a mid-level manager who often worked late. "What are you doing with those papers?" Maria's heart raced. "Just cleaning, ma'am. Some documents fell, and I'm putting them back in order." Janet looked skeptical but nodded. "Make sure everything stays exactly where it was." As she walked away, Maria could hear her muttering, "Cleaning staff shouldn't be reading company documents." The next day, Maria approached HR during her break. She had dressed in her best clothes, a navy blue suit she bought for her business presentations at school. The receptionist looked surprised to see a member of the cleaning staff in the corporate office during daylight hours. "I need to report something important," Maria said firmly, holding her folder of evidence. The HR director, Mr. Phillips, finally agreed to see her after making her wait for 2 hours. As Maria began explaining what she had found, his expression changed from bored to dismissive. "Miss Thompson," he interrupted, "do you realize what you're suggesting? Mr. Sterling is a highly respected CEO. Why would anyone believe these accusations from a cleaning lady?" "Because this cleaning lady has a business degree," Maria responded calmly, pulling out her recently earned diploma. "And because every document in this folder proves what I'm saying." Phillips leafed through her evidence quickly, barely glancing at the pages. "I'll look into it," he said, but Maria noticed him dropping her carefully prepared folder into his shredder as she left his office. That night, Maria found her cleaning cart vandalized, supplies scattered across the maintenance room floor. A note was taped to her locker: "Know your place." But they had underestimated her. Maria had prepared for this. Every document in the folder she gave to HR was a copy. The originals were safely stored with her lawyer, Mr. Rodriguez, a former student from her night classes who had believed in her case. "Your evidence is solid, Maria," Rodriguez had told her during their meeting. "But going against Sterling won't be easy. He has connections, expensive lawyers, and the power to make your life very difficult." Maria spent her breaks creating detailed spreadsheets tracking every fraudulent transaction she had discovered. Her accounting professor had taught her how to follow money trails, and she used these skills to map out Sterling's entire scheme. One evening, she overheard Sterling and Morton in the elevator, unaware of her presence as she mopped the floor nearby. "The pension fund transfers are almost complete," Morton said. "Once the money's in the Cayman accounts, no one can trace it." "Good," Sterling replied. "And make sure those maintenance department layoffs happen soon. We need to cover our tracks." Maria's mop never stopped moving, but her mind was racing. She now had a deadline. The layoffs would start soon, and her coworkers would lose both their jobs and their retirement savings. That night, Maria made 3 copies of everything she had gathered. One set went to her lawyer, one to a trusted journalist she had contacted, and one was hidden in a secure location. She organized her evidence into clear, professional presentations, just as she had learned in her business communication class. Looking at her final report, Maria felt a mix of fear and determination. The CEO's scheme was now laid bare in graphs, charts, and documented evidence. Her years of education had given her the tools to understand and expose the fraud. Her years of being invisible had given her the opportunity to gather evidence no one thought she could comprehend. Tomorrow, she would bypass HR and take her case directly to the board of directors. The cleaning lady was ready to prove that education and truth could overcome power and greed. The morning of the board meeting arrived with a tension that hung heavy in the air. Maria had followed the proper channels, sending a formal letter to each board member detailing her findings. To her surprise, they had agreed to hear her presentation, though she suspected it was more to dismiss her claims publicly than to take them seriously. Maria stood in her small bathroom, adjusting the dark blue suit she had bought specifically for this day. Her daughter Sophia helped her with her hair, pulling it back into a professional bun. "Mama, you look like a CEO yourself," Sophia said proudly, not fully understanding the magnitude of what her mother was about to do. Maria arrived at Giggled Tower an hour early, clutching her presentation folder. The security guard did a double take. He had never seen the night cleaning lady dressed in business attire. The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than usual. Outside the boardroom, she could hear voices inside. Sterling's distinctive laugh carried through the door. Taking a deep breath, Maria remembered her public speaking classes, straightened her spine, and knocked. The conversation inside stopped abruptly. "Come in," a voice called. Maria entered to find 12 board members seated around a massive mahogany table. Sterling sat at the head, looking amused. The CFO, Morton, sat beside him, his face red with either anger or embarrassment. "Ah, our cleaning staff has arrived," Sterling announced, emphasizing the word cleaning with a smirk. "Though I must say, you clean up quite nicely yourself." A few board members chuckled, but Maria remained composed. She had practiced this moment countless times in front of her mirror. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady. "My name is Maria Thompson, and I'm here to present evidence of systematic fraud being committed against this company and its employees." Before Sterling could interrupt, Maria started her PowerPoint presentation. Her business technology class had taught her how to create clear professional slides. The first one showed a simple chart of missing pension funds. Over the past 3 years, she continued, approximately $50 million has been diverted from employee pension funds into private offshore accounts. The board members' expressions changed from dismissive to concerned as Maria methodically presented her evidence. She showed them original documents, traced money transfers, and played recordings she had made during her night shifts of incriminating conversations. Sterling's amusement turned to anger. "This is ridiculous," he exploded. "Are you really going to listen to a cleaning woman's fairy tales?" "This cleaning woman has a business degree with honors," one of the board members, Mrs. Chen, spoke up. "And these documents appear very real." Maria continued, explaining complex financial transactions in simple terms, just as she had learned in her classes. She showed them how Sterling and Morton had created fake companies, fabricated expenses, and systematically stolen from employee retirement accounts. Halfway through her presentation, Sterling stood up abruptly. "This is absurd. I won't sit here and be accused by the help." "Sit down, Marcus," the board chairman ordered. "Ms. Thompson, please continue." For 2 hours, Maria presented her case. She showed them emails she had photographed, documents she had found, and spreadsheets tracking every fraudulent transaction. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice remained firm. "The next phase of their plan," she concluded, "involves laying off the entire maintenance department to cover up the missing pension funds. 30 families will lose both their jobs and their retirement savings." The boardroom fell silent. Sterling's face had turned pale. Morton was staring at his hands. "How did you understand all this?" one board member finally asked. "I spent 5 years studying business while I cleaned your offices," Maria replied. "You never noticed me, but I noticed everything." The board chairman cleared his throat. "Miss Thompson, please wait outside while we discuss this matter." As Maria left the boardroom, she heard raised voices behind her. Sterling was shouting something about preposterous accusations, but his voice sounded desperate now. Sitting on a chair in the hallway, Maria closed her eyes. She had done everything she could. Her evidence was solid, her presentation had been clear, and most importantly, she had stood her ground. The cleaning lady had spoken truth to power. Now she could only wait to see if justice would prevail. The next 24 hours at Giggled Corporation were chaos. News vans lined the street outside the building, reporters desperate for details about the scandal that had rocked the corporate world. Inside, FBI agents moved through the executive floor, collecting evidence and conducting interviews. Maria arrived for her regular night shift, wearing her usual cleaning uniform. The security guards, who had watched Sterling and Morton being escorted out in handcuffs earlier that day, now looked at her with a mixture of awe and respect. "Miss Thompson," one guard said, "the board wants to see you in the conference room." When she entered, the room was filled with serious-looking men and women in expensive suits. Federal agents sat alongside board members, all surrounded by stacks of documents and open laptops. "Please, sit down," Mr. Richardson said, gesturing to a chair that, until yesterday, she had only ever cleaned. "What you've uncovered is far bigger than we initially thought." The lead FBI investigator, Agent Roberts, spread out several documents. "The fraud extends beyond just the pension fund. We found evidence of money laundering, tax evasion, and international wire fraud. Miss Thompson's evidence provided the key to uncovering everything." News of Sterling's arrest had spread through the building like wildfire. The maintenance staff gathered in their break room, watching the story unfold on the small TV they normally used for telenovelas. "That's our Maria," Rosa exclaimed proudly as Maria's professional photo appeared on the screen. The headline read, "Corporate Fraud Exposed by Vigilant Employee." The company's stock had indeed taken a hit, just as Sterling had threatened. But the board's swift action in appointing an interim CEO and their full cooperation with authorities had helped stabilize the situation. Maria's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists wanted interviews, TV shows wanted her story, and law firms wanted to represent her. Her daughter Sophia had to screen her calls. "Mama," Sophia said one evening, "they're calling you a hero on social media. Look at all these messages." But not everyone was celebrating. Some middle managers who had benefited from Sterling's scheme began spreading rumors about Maria. They suggested she had ulterior motives, that she had somehow engineered the whole thing for personal gain. In the executive bathroom she had cleaned thousands of times, Maria overheard two vice presidents talking. "It's embarrassing. Our entire operation exposed by a cleaning lady. What will our shareholders think?" The other replied, "Well, a cleaning lady with a business degree and more integrity than our entire C-suite combined." The FBI investigation revealed that Sterling and Morton had been planning to flee the country the following week. They had first-class tickets to a non-extradition country and millions stashed in offshore accounts. Maria's actions had stopped them just in time. During a company-wide meeting, Mr. Richardson addressed the staff. "Thanks to Ms. Thompson's courage and intelligence, we prevented the largest corporate theft in our company's history. The pension funds will be recovered, and no jobs will be lost in the maintenance department." The cleaning staff erupted in applause. Many had tears in their eyes, realizing how close they had come to losing everything. Late that night, as Maria made her rounds with her cleaning cart one last time, the board had insisted she take a new position in corporate compliance. She stopped at Sterling's former office. The name had already been removed from the door. She remembered all the nights she had cleaned this office, watching Sterling ignore her, laugh at her, treat her as if she were invisible. Now his personal belongings were being packed into boxes by federal agents. As she turned to leave, she noticed something that made her smile. On the desk was a framed article from that morning's newspaper. The board had placed it there temporarily, planning to hang it in the lobby. The headline read, "From cleaning floors to cleaning house, how one woman's integrity changed corporate America." Maria touched the frame lightly, thinking of all the other invisible workers in offices across the country. Maybe her story would remind the world that wisdom, integrity, and courage could be found in the most unexpected places, even pushing a cleaning cart through empty hallways at midnight. The weeks following Sterling's arrest brought dramatic changes to Giggled Corporation and Maria's life. The board had unanimously voted to create a new position, Director of Corporate Integrity and Compliance. To everyone's surprise except those who knew her best, they'd offered the role to Maria. "We need someone who understands both the operational and ethical sides of business," Mrs. Chen explained during the offer meeting. "Someone who sees what others miss, and more importantly, someone with the courage to speak up." Maria sat in what would become her new office, still trying to process the transformation. Just a month ago, she had cleaned this very room. Now, she had a desk, a team, and a mission to reshape the company's ethical culture. Her first day in the new role was surreal. Her daughter Sophia helped her choose a professional wardrobe to replace her cleaning uniforms. As she walked through the lobby in her new clothes, several executives who had previously looked through her now rushed to open doors and offer greetings. "Miss Thompson, wonderful presentation at the morning meeting. Maria, do you have a minute to discuss the new compliance protocols?" The same people who had ignored her for years now sought her advice and approval. But Maria hadn't forgotten her roots. She made sure her first policy change was to improve working conditions for the maintenance staff. The media attention continued to grow. Business magazines wanted to profile her, universities asked her to speak to their students, and corporate watchdog groups hailed her as a symbol of ethical leadership. During Sterling's trial, Maria testified about the fraud she had uncovered. The former CEO, now wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his expensive suits, couldn't meet her eyes as she detailed his crimes to the court. The defendant didn't think a cleaning lady could understand his scheme, the prosecutor said in his closing argument. That prejudice was his downfall. Back at Giggled, Maria implemented new transparency measures. She established an anonymous reporting system for employees at all levels to report concerns. She also started a program to provide educational opportunities for maintenance and support staff. One morning, as she prepared for a board meeting, Rosa knocked on her office door. "Maria," Rosa said, tears in her eyes, "I just got accepted into the company's new education program. I'm going to study accounting." Maria hugged her friend tightly. "See, it's never too late to dream bigger." The pension funds were recovered from Sterling's offshore accounts, and the maintenance department employees received additional compensation for the stress they had endured. Maria made sure every person who had been at risk of losing their savings understood what had happened and how their money had been protected. 6 months after Sterling's arrest, TechGlobe's stock price had not only recovered but reached new highs. Investors appreciated the company's renewed commitment to transparency and ethical business practices. Maria's daughter Sophia, now in college, brought her business ethics class to tour TechGlobe. The students listened intently as Maria shared her story, explaining how education and integrity had transformed her life. Never let anyone define your worth by your current position, she told them. Knowledge and truth are powerful weapons against corruption. The cleaning staff now had a break room on the executive floor, another of Maria's changes. She often joined them for coffee, remembering the late-night conversations that had once filled her breaks. One evening, as Maria worked late in her office, she saw a new cleaning lady dusting the shelves. The woman seemed startled when Maria spoke to her. "Please, sit down for a moment," Maria said kindly. "Tell me about yourself." The woman hesitantly sat, then slowly began to share her story. She was taking night classes, dreaming of a better future, just as Maria had done. Maria opened her desk drawer and pulled out a business card. "If you ever see something wrong, or if you need support for your education, come talk to me. My door is always open." The cleaning lady stared at the card in disbelief, then at Maria. "Thank you, Ms. Thompson." "Call me Maria," she replied with a warm smile. "And never let anyone tell you you're just a cleaning lady. Sometimes, the person pushing the cleaning cart is the one who sees everything most clearly." As the woman left, Maria turned to look out her office window at the city lights. She had transformed from invisible to influential, but her mission remained the same: to prove that integrity and determination could overcome any barrier, no matter how high. 1 year after the dramatic events that had transformed TechGlobe Corporation, Maria Thompson stood at a podium in the company's main auditorium. The room was packed with employees from every department, from executives to maintenance staff, all gathered for a special announcement. "Today, we're launching the TechGlobe Educational Excellence Program," Maria announced, her voice confident and clear. "Every employee, regardless of their position, will have the opportunity to pursue higher education with full company support." The applause was thunderous. In the front row, Rosa sat beside several other former cleaning staff members who had already started their education programs. Some were studying business, others technology, all reaching for dreams they once thought impossible. Maria's office had become known as the open door throughout the company. Employees from all levels felt comfortable coming to her with concerns, ideas, and aspirations. The corporate culture had transformed from one of fear and secrecy to one of transparency and growth. Sophia, now in her final year of college, had joined TechGlobe as an intern in the corporate integrity department. Working alongside her mother, she helped develop new programs to ensure ethical business practices. "Mom," Sophia said one evening as they reviewed reports together, "do you ever miss your old job?" Maria smiled, touching the small cleaning cart pin she always wore on her blazer lapel. "I don't miss the job, but I miss the perspective it gave me. Sometimes you need to view things from ground level to truly understand how to fix what's broken at the top." The business world had taken notice of TechGlobe's transformation. Other companies began implementing similar programs, and Maria was frequently invited to speak at corporate events about ethical leadership and inclusive workplace cultures. Sterling's trial had concluded with a guilty verdict and a lengthy prison sentence. The day of the sentencing, Maria visited him in custody. He seemed smaller somehow, without his expensive suits and arrogant demeanor. "Why did you come?" he asked bitterly. "To thank you," Maria replied. "Your arrogance taught me that education without ethics is dangerous, and that true leadership comes from integrity, not authority." TechGlobe's board had appointed Maria as the permanent chief ethics officer, making her the first former maintenance worker to join the C-suite. Her office now had a wall of windows overlooking the city, but she kept her old cleaning cart in the corner as a reminder of where she came from. One morning, Maria arrived early to find a group of cleaning staff gathered in the break room, studying together before their shifts ended. They were discussing business concepts, helping each other understand complex theories. The scene brought tears to her eyes. The company's annual report that year showed record profits, but more importantly, it showed the lowest employee turnover rate in TechGlobe's history. The pension fund had not only been restored, but had grown significantly under new ethical management. Maria's story had become part of business school case studies. Universities used her experience to teach students about corporate ethics, leadership, and the importance of valuing all employees. She made sure to always mention that her success came not just from uncovering fraud, but from the years of dedicated study while working as a cleaning lady. On the anniversary of Sterling's arrest, Maria organized a company-wide celebration, not of his downfall, but of the positive changes that had emerged from it. The maintenance staff now had representation on the board of directors, and employee suggestions were actively sought and implemented. As she walked through the office halls that evening, Maria passed the spot where she had once mopped floors and discovered the fraud that changed everything. A plaque now hung there, reading, "Integrity sees what privilege overlooks." In the newly renovated lobby, a large photograph showed the entire company's staff, executives, middle management, maintenance workers, and security personnel, all standing together as equals. Below it, a quote from Maria read, "Success is not about where you start, but about having the courage to speak truth to power and the determination to rise above expectations." The cleaning lady who had been invisible for so long had become a beacon of hope and change, proving that sometimes the most powerful voices come from those society tends to overlook. Maria Thompson's legacy at TechGlobe wasn't just about exposing fraud. It was about transforming a corporation into a community where every voice mattered and every dream could flourish.